Hey, thank you all so much for joining me for this webinar all about SEO basics. I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So you can all see what I'm seeing. And slideshow view is there. Awesome. So yes, welcome to SEO Basics. I hope you know what SEO stands for. In case you don't, it stands for Search Engine Optimization. And yes, when we say search engine, we tend to mean Google. There are other search engines out there, but Google does own 90 something percent of, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it is more than 90% of the online search world. So when we talk about SEO, we really mean Google. So the other way that I like to talk about SEO and people go, huh, what's that? I talk about it as making friends with Google. So that's essentially what we're here to learn how to do. And first we want to start with why should you care about SEO? Because I was just talking to someone the other day who's in charge of business development for his firm, and he is trying to hire me, and he's all on board, but he has to sell it to his bosses who are all like, why do we need a website? Why do we care about this? And I'm trying to explain it in terms that he can then take to his people and explain to them why this is so important. So first off, again, organic search tends to be the primary source of website traffic. Yes, you can email people your link, you can get on social media and share your link that way. That are a few ways of getting people to your website, but organic search tends to top all of that. When people need an answer to something, or they are looking for a particular piece of information or how to do something, or they want to know what something is or why they should care about it, they tend to do a Google search. It builds trust and credibility. I don't know about you, but I do know this is true of most people. I know when I search something, you get a bunch of ads at the top. I tend to skip the ads and go straight to the first highest ranking link. And that is what I will look at first. I don't even look at the ads. And that is true of most people. Most people will skip over the ads. And even if they do click on an ad, having that organic ranking below it, because there are some companies that have the ad and then also rank organically, having that makes people much more likely to click through, because that organic ranking, it makes you that much more credible. Google is constantly, all these algorithm updates that we talk about, Google is constantly trying to find ways to pair people with the content that they're looking for. And Google does its own kind of credibility search, which we'll talk about later. Google vets you basically before ranking you at the top of that first page. And because people use Google all the time, they trust Google to give them the information that they're looking for, to give them the best information. So it's a great way to build trust and credibility. And according to Google, searches for support local businesses has increased 20,000%. And I had a year in there that I forgot to include. I think that was since the pandemic. I think that was since like 2020 or 2021. I think a lot of us have been all about supporting local businesses for a long time now, but the pandemic for a lot of people really made it hit home why this is so important. And I just realized I was going to put in another slide here about who I am and what I do and why you should listen to what I have to say about SEO. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. So for those of you who don't know my history, I majored in English and psychology, always wanted to be a writer, was told writers don't make any money and I should choose a more practical career. So I figured I would work in publishing. If I couldn't make a living writing books, maybe I could make a living making books. Well, I graduated in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So there were no jobs to be had in publishing or really anywhere else. So I answered phones for a few years, ended up between jobs at one point, and my roommate at the time, her dad, who was an attorney, was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. And he knew I had a strong writing background, so he offered me the gig. And I was like, what? I can get paid to write? Seriously? Yeah, sign me up. So I started writing blog posts for him. and was very successful. I would write about 2 to 4 blog posts per month for him. And after 6 months, he came back and told me I had brought in $75,000 worth of business for his law firm just through the blog posts that I was writing for him. Suffice to say, he was not paying me $75,000 for 6 months of blog posts. I wish that had been the case. So his return on that investment was significant. And that was my first clue. It's like, oh, there's real money to be made here in creating this content, establishing yourself as an authority in your industry, and doing it in a way that, again, makes Google your friend, helps you show up in searches so that when people are looking for you, they're gonna see your business. Lots of ways to do that. Content is king. We will talk about that a little bit later. But what I found really interesting as far as my journey with SEO specifically is if you were paying attention to that story, I did get into this on the writing side. And if you had told me at the time that I would need to learn SEO in order to pursue this professionally, I would have been too intimidated to even try. Never considered myself a numbers person, would have said, okay, no, thank you. It's very scary. It's very intimidating. I actually ended up falling into SEO completely by accident. Someone sent me a screenshot of a little bit of keyword research they had done for me just for fun. And I was fascinated. I was like, wait, people are looking for this, but not this. And they're looking for this over here. And these two basically mean the same thing, but more people are interested in this. And that means there's more value in talking about this topic. And that was it. I was hooked. So I now create things like this. I wrote my book, Content Marketing Made Easy, all with the idea of making SEO super accessible. So if you are one of those people who thinks SEO is scary and super intimidating and not for you, this webinar is literally created for you. So we are going to start with Google's EAT standards. That was part of a major algorithm update they did a few years ago. EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. This all gets down to the fact that Google is trying to point people in the direction of content that is useful and credible. So Google uses these standards to try and vet you, to make sure that you pass this bar in order to be worthy of getting put in front of their customers. Because if Google puts crappy content in front of their customers, that makes Google look bad, and Google doesn't want to do that. So Google is constantly trying to figure out how to vet content, how to vet websites, to make sure it's really it's a credible source of information. So how do we convince Google that we are an expert? Credentials are one, especially if you are in a professional services industry. Again, I got started working with a law firm. People want to make sure you went to law school, right? They want to make sure you went to a good law school. So that is absolutely something that you should talk about. If you work in, especially if you work in finance or nutrition or any kind of health field, Google is especially careful with what we call your money or your life topics, which means anything that can impact your finances or your health. Make sure you have a certification, at least one certification, and put that on your website. You can link to whatever school you got your degree, certification, award. Definitely put up awards. Awards are awesome for content marketing. Put those all over social media. Put those on your website. Make a blog post. Make a press release about that. I've done that for clients too, where they get an award or certification or something new and they want to tell the world about it. So they write a press release. So absolutely put that all over your website, because that makes you look really good. That's going to, again, not only is Google going to pay attention to that, but the real life people who find your website are going to be looking for that, especially if you're working in a professional services industry. That is going to be super important for making sure that you have that expertise and that credibility. Like I said, you can link to whatever school or organization is giving you these degrees, certifications, credentials. You don't have to. It does help your SEO a little bit to link to it, but Google's really good at tracking and figuring out what different things are about. So Google can just look at the text, and as long as you name the school or organization in there, Google will figure it out. But that link, it shows that you're playing nice with your organization or your school. It's a little bit of credibility on your part, and it just helps Google figure it out. It helps Google go, okay, yeah, this really is about this over here. We're not guessing anymore. We now know because we see that backlink. Authority. I had a different book on this slide, and then I was like, wait, I have a book now, so I get to put that up there. That was a big reason that I wanted to write a book, was so that I could say that I'm an author. I literally wrote the book on content marketing, right? I was actually reading a book not too long ago, and there was a chapter on content marketing, and I was like, man, I could write oh, wait, I did write the book on this. Cool. Published books, speaking gigs, backlinks are also a great way to increase your authority. That's a whole other topic. We'll talk about backlinks a little bit later. But and again, those awards, that's another place, another way that you can get that authority. It's basically, what are people saying about you? Everyone knows that you're going to talk yourself up and say how awesome you are and how much you know about XYZ, but what are other people saying about you? I always talk about it as like, if I talk about how much I know about SEO, okay, that's cool, that's nice. But if someone else that you already trust and respect says, yeah, no, Allison really knows her stuff, that's going to have a lot more weight with your opinion about me than just me talking about myself. So that's where the backlinks come in. But again, we'll get to that a little bit later. Trustworthiness. How does Google or your reader know they can trust what you say? And actually, a big way to gain trustworthiness is one of the simplest ways, and it's just to be consistent. I talk about this all the time with blogging. Blog consistently. First of all, if you don't have a blog, you're just publishing content on your website and you're leaving it up and not touching it. And if you're not publishing new content, that doesn't do anything to position you as an authority in your industry or to build trust with Google or, again, the real life people finding your website. And same with your blog. If you put up content and go, I'm going to be blogging, and then you put up a few blog posts and then no one hears from you for 5 months, right? That doesn't look so great. Google won't trust that website as much, and the real life people are going to look at your blog and be like, oh wait, they haven't published anything since last year. Is anyone even behind this website anymore? Or if they are, is this the kind of attention that I can expect to get as a customer if this is the kind of attention they pay to their content? So publishing consistently, using relevant keywords, and creating content that answers the questions around those keywords is absolutely important to gaining trustworthiness. So now let's talk about what your website, like, let's say you're getting and this is for when you're getting your website set up, but if you already have a website, it is by no means too late to make sure that these things are in order. That's kind of the beauty of the internet, is you can always play around with stuff and add stuff and take stuff out and do whatever you need to do. So these are just the basics of what your website needs, aside from content. I just want to drill that home. SSL certificate is basically your security certificate. So I took a couple screenshots here, and you'll see over on the one, I circled that little padlock that shows up before the URL. That means that website has an SSL certificate. That is good to go. The other website I'm picking on over here says not secure right before the URL. That is not a good sign. That means they do not have an SSL certificate. And you can see that. And actually, I was really concerned because my local animal shelter was recently, I got an email from them. They were having a drive. And of course, I want to give them money. And I clicked through on the link to give them money. And that little not secure sign popped up. I'm like, I don't want to give them my credit card information if it's not going to be secure. What the SSL certificate means is any information that gets entered into the website gets encoded before it gets sent to the back end, before the person who runs the website sees it. So that's a great way to keep your information secure. So I ended up writing a check to my my local animal shelter because I was not going to put my credit card information into a website that was not secure. Even if you don't take credit card information, even if you don't take payments online, this affects your SEO. Google does not want to send people to a website that is not secure. And when we talk about information getting entered into a website, remember that this includes email addresses. So if you have a newsletter, which you should, then anytime an email address gets entered into your website to sign up for your newsletter, that is potentially at risk and putting their email address at risk. So you don't want to do that either. So get that SSL certificate, even if you're not collecting email addresses. If you're not collecting any information at all, it still affects your SEO because Google doesn't want to point people towards websites that are not secure. Load speed. Yes, Google measures how quickly your website loads. 3 seconds or less is ideal. A bunch of things can impact how quickly it loads. Videos and images are a big one. And I do recommend using videos and images on your website because we are visual creatures. We love seeing that stuff. But if you notice that it starts taking forever for your website to load, that's not a great sign. So you're going to want to pull back on some of those either smaller images and or shorter videos and or fewer images and or videos to improve that load speed. You might want to talk to your web developer if there's something on their end that they could do. Also your host, whoever is hosting your website, it might be a server issue. Sometimes things are slow. It's not always your fault. Sometimes it's the user's internet is being slow, right? But keep in mind that you need to do what you can to make sure that your load speed is quick, because again, it affects your SEO. It also, again, affects the real life people who find your website. We have become creatures of instant gratification. We want it now. And if we don't get it within 3 seconds, we are much more likely to click away. That's why Google has that 3-second rule. It's not arbitrary. It is because once you get past 3 seconds, people are much more likely to give up, click away, find what they need somewhere else. So make sure your website loads quickly on mobile as well as on desktop. Those are 2 different things. But mobile is super important, which is, I think that's something I forgot to mention. I should have a separate slide about that. The fact that being mobile friendly is more important than ever because we are on our phones and our tablets more than ever as we're traveling around. We still want access to all the same information that we have when we're sitting here at a desktop or laptop. So, that was a rule as of, oh gosh, like 2013 or 2014, I think Google was like, all right, we're making everything mobile friendly. If it's not mobile friendly, then it's going to impact your searchability. So that is another thing that you are going to want to do. Most websites are already mobile friendly, especially if you get like a standard theme off of like WordPress or something. All the web developers know how important mobile is. So it should already be calibrated for that. But check on, if you can, check on an Android and a phone, an iPhone and the various tablets, so that you're getting a full picture of how your website is loading and how it's showing up when people are using it. So load speed is good, mobile is good, images and video. We do like images and video. We are more likely to interact and engage with content that has images and video. So like I said, I do recommend putting it on your website. But again, be aware that it could also slow down your load speed. So keep an eye on your load speed and find that nice balance between, high quality visuals, images and video that are going to add to your content, but also not slow down your website. Backlinks, I told you we would get to backlinks. So again, this is super important for your authority. Back to those EAT standards. Again, it's someone saying it's using you as a reference. So for example, I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head. I could pick anyone as, like, if I want to talk about LinkedIn, for example, I could be like, you should know this about LinkedIn, and I got this information over here. And I could get that information almost anywhere. But the first place I'm going to look is Mary Wu's, honestly, her LinkedIn profile rather than her website. But I can use her as a reference and name her, because again, Google keeps track of these things, and provide a link to the resource. That makes my information look more credible because I'm literally citing my source. It also makes Mary look really good because I'm saying, hey, Mary's got the information over here. This is where you want to go look at that. Again, that helps your organic traffic because now people are organically clicking through and finding that, but it also boosts your SEO because Google is going, oh, Allison thinks that Mary is really awesome and knows her stuff about this topic. So we're going to go ahead and boost Mary's rankings with that particular keyword. which is another good point. When you are including backlinks, you want to highlight a particular keyword with that hyperlink, because the words that, in this case that I have here, they turn blue when I have that hyperlink. So those words that appear in blue and underlined, you want to make sure that's a good keyword that's really relevant to the topic that you're referencing. So there are internal backlinks and there are external backlinks. They are both important. Internal backlinks are when you reference your own content on your website. So for example, I have an example of my website over here. At the top, I say I've already covered how to write a great headline. That's my keyword, how to write a great headline, right? And then that link over there leads to another blog post on my website. So that's an internal backlink because it's from one post to another post on the same website. External backlink, I think this is the same blog post, but there's that link that I, again, put to another website where I'm citing my source. It's like, here's what you need to know. Here's where I got that information. So that link leads to another website. Yes, people worry about the fact that you are driving traffic away from your website. I don't worry about that too much because I don't think most people are actually going to click through and read, and forget about you. It might happen occasionally. You run that risk. But make sure that it opens in another tab, that you have that set up so that it does that. So people don't lose your website when they open up that tab. And again, it helps your SEO. Google wants to make sure that you're playing nice with others. So it does help when you have an external backlink, but the best is when someone else has a great backlink linking back to your website, which leads to the question, how do you get good
Am I allowed to ask a question, or do you want me to wait till the end?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Just on backlinks, sorry to interrupt because you're flowing really nicely. Could you like link to your site on your own LinkedIn page and articles on LinkedIn? Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, although I might actually throw that to Mary. I always recommend having a link to your website in your profile, obviously. Yeah. When it comes to posts, and Mary, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I understand it, posts that have links leading out of LinkedIn tend to get buried in, and not buried per se. I mean, it's not like no one's going to see it. But LinkedIn doesn't like when you do that because you are leading people away from LinkedIn. So they tend not to promote those posts as much. I have seen people get around that by including the link in the comments, but now you're making them do a little more work, and that they have to read to see that the link is in the comments, and then they have to click through to the comments and then click through to the link. And it's like, how many people are really going to do that? So Mary, do you want to jump in, or do you want to save this for later?
Please put your website in your contact information. Please put your website in your about section so that people can hunt you down and find you. LinkedIn is not as pissy now as it used to be if you put links in posts, but it still runs it down a little bit further. And one of the LinkedIn experts I know just did a article on this not too long ago, so I'll pop that in the link when I find in the chat when I find it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
I was going to ask another question, but it's not actually relevant. So yeah, well, and quickly on LinkedIn, you can also do LinkedIn newsletters. I do a weekly LinkedIn newsletter, and I always at the end link back to my website. And everyone who subscribes to that newsletter not only sees it in their LinkedIn feed, but they also see it in their inbox. So Google can't really yell at me or do anything to me for having that link in there. So that's another way to, on LinkedIn, include your link and get people over to your website without getting punished for it. Thank you for that, Mary. Okay, so how to get backlinks on your website. Look for related blog posts. Use the Check My Links browser. This is a Google Chrome browser extension. It scans a page for you. So if you are looking for a related blog post and you click through and you're looking through that article or web page or whatever, you can use the Check My Links extension to scan that post or page or article and see if there are any broken links. And then you can message the author of that piece and say, hey, I know I was looking at your piece about such and such. I noticed you have a broken link here. I just happen to have just written a blog post about this. So here it is, if you are interested in putting that in there. So you are solving a problem for them and making it super easy for them to solve that problem. I also came across a trick recently, which I love. You can use an SEO tool to see which websites are linking to your competitors. So if you have, if you're trying to rank for a particular keyword, you see a website is ranking for that keyword, you take that URL and put it into an SEO tool and see what other websites are linking back to that website. There are various tools that can show you all of that. So if they're getting backlinks from those websites, then if you're also trying to rank for that keyword, you can reach out to those websites and also ask for a backlink. It's important to remember that not all backlinks are created equal. Google assumes that like hangs out with like. So if high quality websites with good content, ranking for relevant keywords, if they're linking back to your website, that's going to boost your SEO. If crappy websites that don't rank for relevant keywords are linking back to your website, that can actually hurt your SEO, which I know is not fair because now you're getting blamed for what other people are doing on the internet, but that's the world we live in. There are ways to disavow those links, which is a way of telling Google, no, don't pay attention to this. You do need an SEO tool to manage that. So it is possible, but yeah, the links will still work. If anyone wants to click on it and click through to your website, it will still work. That disavow is just a way of telling Google, no, I'm not associated with this. Please don't count it towards my SEO. And now we can open it up to questions. And the QR code, by the way, leads to my scheduling calendar. If you want to talk more, if you want, if you have any other questions, if you're interested in how I can help you with some of this, we can have a chat about it. So that's what the QR code is there for. It's not just randomly put there.
Oh, I feel silly now. If I'd waited like one minute longer, I could have asked my question at the right time. I'm sorry, Alison.
No worries. Do you have any other questions?
No, but I just have had a look at my LinkedIn profile and realized I didn't have my web address in my About section. So I fixed that. Thank you, Mary.
It's in the it's in the contact section, but people are lazy and sometimes don't think to go up and look in the contact section. So having it in multiple places makes it easier for people to find you if they're lazy.
Yeah.
Which we are.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know I have it in my contact section, but I don't think I have it in my About section. So I also need to fix that. Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. So thank you so much to those of you who showed up. Thank you to those of you watching the recording. And again, whether you have questions now or in the future, you know where to find me. If you miss the QR code, you can always find me over at my website, AV, as in my initials, Alison Palin, avwritingservices.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy blogging.
Oh, Alison, you have your link